we will stay true to ourselves, even when we know that others will loathe us. Well, Sean Bennett discovered that there is a clear fork in the road that we will face at some point in our lives. This came to him as he was a contestant on America's Worst Celebrity Chef. The trick is to know what to do and how to allow others' reactions to affect us, not the other way around. When we do, we get on the happy path to life. The best part, Sean tested his theory on himself, and it worked. He believes the more you give, the greater it will come back in return. This is Create Opportunities, changing the way people see the world. You're such an in-demand person. A lot of the work that you're doing, you're everywhere. Right now you're in Chicago as we're talking, and I know your home turf is New York City. But with everything that you're doing, what are some of the things that you've learned along the way with your journey?
Sure. Probably one of the biggest things I learned, and from being on Food Network, is that sharing your vulnerability is often what connects us. And you view it, where I had viewed it previously as being a weakness, or things that I viewed as a negative, like growing up poor or being overweight or being bullied. In retrospect, everybody has obstacles to overcome. And it's really those obstacles that, teach us and that often make us stronger. And I think what sometimes maybe at one point I was ashamed of or afraid to share is now often what I think is my strong suits to share and to connect and to reach with people. So that was something that actually came with time, came with age, came with more awareness, and it wasn't just like a natural transition for myself.
What really changed? Because there's a lot of people out there that, there was something along the way that was shame. And I know I have some of that in there too. And then with age, it's like, okay, you get to a certain point, you get to a certain age, and it's like, I just don't care what other people think anymore.
Right.
and so, like, what was it for you that shifted?
It was very interesting. It came from a very funny comment. Like when I was doing the Food Network show, Worst Cooks in America, one of the girls was a producer who was one of the contestants. And she had said, like, everybody's going to hate you. And to me, and she was like a friend or like a new friend I was making. So I'm like, well, why does she think this? I didn't understand. And it was because I guess I was coming across as overly groomed and overly polished, that she just thought I was unrelatable. So then it made me awaken. I'm like, oh yeah, well, I was a fat kid. I had a lazy eye. And I just like started sharing all these stories, and it just like opened me up. And I was like, okay, I guess, the wall I built, or like we all have, as they say in theater, masks that we wear and like, ways we want to be seen, I just let down because I was like, oh, well, I want to be liked. I want people to understand me. And then I realized I'm like, okay, all these things I was covering up aren't necessarily negative. It's just, a part of the story, more or less, instead of judging my own story. And I think that's what we often do. And yeah, so it was just a fact of like, her saying that America is going to hate me. That made me wake up. I was like, why's America going to hate me? I don't want to be hated by America.
Right.
So that's what happened.
Right, because I'm trying to please everybody all the time, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I was like, we don't want anybody to hate us. There was a situation that happened like when I first got into business, and I messed up on something, and I started getting like hate mail. And I was crushed. I was like, but I didn't need it. I just wants to don't touch me. And I was ready to throw in the towel and just like die. And like looking back now, it was like, okay, well, that was stupid. Like, why did I get so upset? But we do. And you know what? Nobody really cared. It was really something that we do to ourselves, and that we allow people to do that to us. And that's something that I do work a lot with a lot of our talent on, is you do need to be prepared for those people because they're out there, and you can't let them get to you because, they just, and you got to let it go. You have to have that thick skin, and you got to let it go. And what it is, yeah. And I don't want to use the word jealousy, but it's, you know what? They're like, okay, well, why could they do it and I can't? And it really is almost like a form of jealousy, is what it is. And you got to let it go. You really got to let it go. So with all of the projects that you've done, what has been your most rewarding project?
Oh, that's a good question. What has been my most rewarding? Um, I guess, fair enough, it didn't work out the way I wanted, but it was one of the most exciting and it's kind of karma. Like giving a whole story. When I first moved to New York, I didn't know how I was going to support myself being an actor. I'm just like, oh, I'm an actor here, along with like tons of other actors in New York. So I cater waitered my first year in town. And then I guess at one point, one guy I was working with wanted to know other companies I was working for. For whatever reason, I guess, just in life in general, sometimes some people hold on to things and they don't want to share. They figure, well, if I tell you what companies I'm working for, you're going to take my work or whatever. I shared who I worked for with this gentleman and thought nothing of it. A couple years later, because my goal when I first moved to New York, especially as an actor, was to join the union. So everything was like, oh, I want to join SAG. I want to join SAG. So my first big role was with MTV and VH1, which isn't under the union. So, so in part, I like aired on TV, but I still didn't meet that big criteria in my own mind. Okay. So I wound up with a very small role that got edited out, but it was in the movie A Beautiful Mind. And that's what got me my union card. And it happened because the gentleman I gave catering work to, like 2 years previous, was assisting a casting director. And they were looking at headshots and they're like, who should we give this line to? And he recognized me and he said, give it to him. And so to me, like, it just kind of showed like good deeds really do pay off. Being a good person really pays off. And sometimes the goal you want happens in the most unexpected way. The thing that got me the most attention didn't get me the other goal, but then a random act of kindness got me the goal. So I would say that was just something that was just very fascinating to me. And I still remember to this very day.
Well, A Beautiful Mind was definitely a beautiful movie.
Yeah, it was a big movie. I was taken out of it, but it made me SAG. And then because I was SAG, I got a commercial, then $20,000 a week later. So it all had a good ending, even though it all happened in unexpected ways.
Right. Led to something. Well, great. So this is an interesting question. And I was actually asked this on a podcast recently where I was being interviewed. Do you have or a wants management style or management strategy for yourself?
Oh, that's interesting. I guess it's more of a want because it's always like a desire to improve and to change. For instance, what I've realized, and I haven't done it yet, to my, I guess, chagrin, and I need to get on it, and I will hopefully this spring. The point is, I wanted to like expand. What I realized is like a lot of times, especially for my acting career, I had a callback on Zoom during the pandemic for a Lifetime movie in Atlanta. I didn't book it. I had told you about this. Yeah. But what it made me realize is now I could get agents in all these other states because since the pandemic, so many things are going to be on Zoom. So because I do travel, I have the ability to travel, I have points and miles where it might not even cost me anything. I could work as a local in Atlanta or in Florida or in California or what have you. So it made me realize, okay, I want to have representation in other states, whereas before it would seem silly because yes, I can't clearly, leave on a Monday night to be there Tuesday morning with that short of notice necessarily. Right. However, if I do a Zoom and I know it's shooting next week, yes, I can book a plane ticket and be there to film in whatever city. So I would say, my want continues my growth, and I guess, you grow from what you have, as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we all wish COVID never happened.
Sure.
But there's still opportunities that came out of it. And I know for us, with Talent Concierge, I mean, initially, the industry just completely kaputs. From speaking, public appearances, endorsements, like everything. But once we finally figured out, oh, well, wait a minute, people can speak virtually. People can audition virtually. People can travel virtually. I mean, there are so many different, it's still not the same as the live. And we're still all like holding our breath for those live events to truly come back. And I mean, we're really, wanting that to happen. But those virtual events are still taking place and they're still replacing that. So, I mean, we watch it every day and, we're waiting for that phone every day to say, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. So there's still definitely those opportunities, and the industry is shaping itself differently. And it's not going to go back to the way it was. And that is the one thing that people have to be open to, that it isn't going back to where it was, that it's going forward, and it's going forward in a different way.
Yes, I agree. I mean, but to me, it's almost an exciting opportunity because previously when I would travel doing, media and spokesperson work that I'm doing now, if an audition came in, I'd be like, darn it, I'm missing this opportunity.
Right.
But now it's largely recorded in your room and send it. So I'm not missing the opportunity,
Right.
Granted, maybe the setup's not as great as I would want or what have you. But funny enough, during the pandemic, a few of the acting gigs I booked was when, I wasn't like, having my hair cut and I had gained some weight. So I think sometimes it's just really a matter of your essence and not how perfect the actual product is you send. I'm sure, the more perfect it is, the better.
Right.
It doesn't always matter, if you're right for the role, you're right for the role. So to me, it's expanded opportunities, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. The other thing that we've noticed too, now the shift we've seen already started happening before the pandemic, where corporations and businesses and Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies were looking for experiential opportunities for their team, for their sales team, leadership team, board of directors, because at one time they were doing the exotic experiential trips, and then they pulled back away from that. And before the pandemic, they were already having conversations of, well, it's really nice to bring in those speakers 45 minutes. And they were, already having the conversation. Are the people really getting something out of that? Do we or should we create something more experiential from that? So during pandemic, we did see that. And so with some of our talent, they were creating virtual programming where they would speak virtually, and then they were doing month-long or 6-month-long programmings for them. So now they're saying, okay, we want to go back to the exotic islands, experiential type programming. So now they're stepping back into that as well. So the industry is really testing the waters of where they're going. So it's really opening up to a lot more opportunities, and even travel agents. At one point, travel agents were dying down. It was a dying industry. They've even made a comeback. So the opportunities are really out there. So you really have to look for them. So I want to jump into, what are your thoughts about a bucket list? Creating a bucket list.
I say, just live your life doing what you love and don't wait, for the list, Try to live your list as much as you can. Meaning, I have the luxury to do it as well. Look, I understand if you're tied down with a lot of bills, a larger family, responsibilities, it's a little harder to just like, oh, I'm going to South Africa next week. Totally get it. In my situation, because I'm still single and I don't really have, any pressing debt or what have you, if I want to do a vacation or if I want to experience something, I do my best to try to do it within, a year, 2 years, whatever I can do. Now, clearly, since the pandemic, international travel hasn't been number one on my list. These things can change overnight. So you don't know what the rules are going to be, if you can go. So, that's a little bit on hold. But I say for the most part, try to know what you want to do and do it sooner than later. Because one thing I've even realized, I took my mother on a Mediterranean cruise for her 70th birthday, and she hadn't been to Italy or Greece where we went. And it was a great experience for us both. But I also realized there were so many people who were senior citizens on that boat who also didn't travel. And, when everything aches, when it's harder to get around, when you're limited in mobility, you can't see everything. You don't want to do everything. You may, need more rest. So I say, don't wait, and then maybe some people didn't live to that point to even get to go. So don't wait, live your list, write your list, live your list as soon as you can on whatever budget you can. I mean, clearly.
And do it. Yeah. So then how can we be more effective day to day?
I say authenticity makes you authentic because, that's how we relate to one another. If, I'm putting up shields like I was talking about and not showing who I am or all worried about like how I'm presenting myself, it keeps people at bay, it keeps opportunities at bay. So I say to, be your very best. I use humor because it's something that just comes very natural to me. I mean, although I don't know how funny I was on this entire interview, but typically, I try to just be outgoing and like make people laugh. And it, and I think it connects everyone because if you share a joke or a moment, it's an energy. And so that's what connects us all is energy.
But I know you're very vulnerable in what you share in your message for your speaking and, the work that you do and as a spokesperson. But what is vulnerability to you? So complete that sentence.
Sure. Vulnerability to me is relatability because we've all had something that hurt us. We've all had something that was a disappointment. We've all had something we were scared, fearful, ashamed of, whatever that may be. And when you claim it and own it, it empowers you instead of being a victim. Like, for instance, there was a program I had taken at one point just, for self-growth because it's just kind of like a hobby and a thing I love doing. Where essentially it was saying to claim your part in any area where you may feel somebody was mean to you, or something bad happened, and just be like, oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't more forgiving, or oh, I'm sorry, I didn't call you back, or whatever it may be. And the whole idea of it isn't saying that you were wrong or that, you really are at fault, but it empowers you as long as you're the victim from something, like this horrible thing happened to me, or somebody should have done something, nicer to me. It only bothers you. I mean, that's why, like, it's almost hard to believe when you see somebody on the news, like they forgive a killer of, a loved one or something. Well, yes. It's not for that person. It's for themselves. I mean,
right.
That's what everybody kind of misses, and it may seem hard, but in the end, it's actually what's going to give you strength because you're claiming your role in it. So, the person who was the victim is saying, okay, I'm claiming the role of forgiving you because otherwise it will destroy me. And that's what the point is. So that's what, vulnerability can be your strength.
And it's very powerful to do that. Very, very powerful. What is something that people get wrong about you?
Oh, I would say probably because I have cartoon villain features. I'm not considered afraid. If I'm not joking, or if I'm not making people laugh or whatever, they might be like, "Oh, who does he think he is?" Or what have you, or like, "Oh, he must be wealthy." I'm like, "No, I just overgroom and I grew up poor and I like nice things and I have good taste, but that's it." So.
That's it. Well, what's one piece of leadership advice that you have been given, shitty or not, that we should all be watchful of or perfectly life altering for you?
It's very interesting because a couple of management styles like I've witnessed. One, for instance, just using my first job was working at theme parks, right? And so at Disney, everybody, even if you're working at a bakery or whatever, they're like, you're a cast member, you're part of a team. And it really does, for the most part, at least in Florida, where, especially at the time, many moons ago, the cost of living was less, would work on people's mentality. Like they were happy to work there. They would be very giving and nice, and their wages were low, but they felt part of a community. And then I've worked for other corporations and stuff doing spokesperson work where a lot of the mindset was, if you don't do this, you could be fired, or it's ruling with fear, and then also too, even politics, when they want to run by using people's fears. And for me, either way, it's if a person has a strong personality, they're going to want to rebel against the fear, or they'll be like, well, why are you being so mean to me? Why are you trying to hold me down? They'll question the authority. So I think, the best thing anyone can do in leadership even if it's not true, and I don't know how true theme parks were about being part of the team, is to make them feel that, they're appreciated. Everybody wants to be appreciated and seen. So I think for a leader, you have to make sure that everybody in your group feels appreciated and seen, or you won't get the best work from them, period.
Right. Well, what was one hard lesson that the universe keeps putting in front of you over and over and over again, to the point where you say, holy shit, not again?
Oh, that's interesting. Wow, that's a good one. I would just say, I think a lot of it is to surrender. You can't force things to happen. I mean, and so I think sometimes, sadly enough, the more you want something, sometimes you keep it more at bay, because either that hunger or fear associated with your want or desire, whatever it is. So it's like dangling a carrot. So the best thing, I've kind of learned, and it's very hard to do, is to just let go. So like even with audition, if it's something I really want or what have you, put it out there, do your best, and let go. Because almost like the first way I became SAG, as I had mentioned, was in the most unexpected way. I couldn't have planned that. And I wouldn't have thought it would have anything to do with cater waitering, is how I'm going to, get my first big break. Like, how is that related? And I think that's what the universe keeps trying to show me. And then time and time again, often I will be like, but I want this. And then I'm like, damn it. And then, when I let go, it just works. So,
Right.
I have to be like Elsa and let it go.
Let it go. Let it go.
Exactly.
Wait for you to start singing a tune there. Well,
exactly.
So what projects are you working on right now?
Well, funny enough, I don't know if they kept my lines in it or not, but somebody had seen me in the second episode of Inventing Anna. So I was on that for Netflix, and I got to watch it. It's very funny because I don't have a Fire Stick. So I don't want to watch it on my computer. So I'm waiting until I get home on Netflix. I'm like, is it just a visual, or did they kept my lines? I don't know. So something happened. So I know I'm somehow involved, but I don't know to what capacity, in a scene on Netflix. Aside from that, I have a couple auditions, that I'm still taping today for projects. And right now I'm doing spokesperson work in Chicago for Chevrolet. And then I go with them to Milwaukee as well.
Super cool. Super cool. So anything else you want to leave our listeners with?
No, just get out there, do you, be you, enjoy life. I mean, and like make that bucket list happen. Kick that bucket, baby. Just saying, behave.
Kick the bucket. Do you? Exactly. Well, I want to thank you.
You got it. Thank you.
Well, Sean Bennett, thanks for being here. You're always, always awesome, and truly, truly enjoy chatting with you and everything that you're doing. Keep it going.
Thank you, Connie. You rock. Have a great one.
Love it. Love it. Well, everybody, thanks for being here. That's all we got for today. This is Create Opportunities, a podcast with Connie Fife, where we are changing the way people see the world. See you next time. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Create Opportunities, a podcast with Connie Fife.